So we have the heroes in the room, those who survived the CPDP conference, survived the last panels, and are ready to say thanks to all those who prepared also this conference. But first of all, let me say a few words as a conclusion of CPDP of this year. First of all, I'm very happy that we have back the panel which is memorizing Kaspar Boden. I tried to keep this name in the conclusions of the CPDP conferences every year because Kaspar's influence on what we do here is really incredible, and we should still remember it 11 years after his death. So let me conclude the discussion. Concluding the CPDP conference is a kind of tradition for the European Data Protection Supervisor, the tradition which I approach with fondness and humility. For us, it remains challenging exercise, especially at the time when the future of the data protection and generally the future of the fundamental rights is not that certain as it was before. This year's conference took place during the 10th anniversary of the EU General Data Protection Regulation, and this allows us to take stock of the regulation according to the materials, achievements and limitations amid proving calls for simplification in the name of innovation and competitiveness. 10 years. That's longer than half of the history of the CPDP, where we have General Data Protection Regulation with us. It seems to be a long time in the era of rapid development of artificial intelligence, but it's also a relatively short period for the implementation of something which we treat as the landmark regulation, as the landmark EU legislation. One question which many of us have asked ourselves during the past year is whether the legislation has to be revised. And if so, how we should approach this goal. When I think about what happened with the law on data protection, but also on the whole digital landscape of the EU last 12 years when I'm here in Brussels, but also since 2006 when I started to work for the public administration, it starts to remind me the allegory of King Rex from Lon Fuller's work. Lon Fuller was the American 20th century legal philosopher connected with Harvard University. And he proposed the story of King Rex as the well-intentioned but incompetent monarch, a man who resolves to make his name in the history as the great, maybe the greatest in the history lawgiver, but fails completely. He fails because he violates the basic principles needed to maintain an effective legal system. First, he starts with not devising the rules of general application, choosing instead to decide case by case about the small pieces of the ad hoc problems, leaving his subjects confused and frustrated. He later drafts the general rules, but decides not to publish them, leaving his people with no way of knowing what the law actually is. He then decides that it's far easier to rule the things with the aid of hindsight than to attempt to foresee the future. And on this basis, he begins to issue the rules with the retroactive effect. But King Rex's failures do not stop here. He also introduces the total lack of clarity, publishing rules that are impossible to understand. He creates the contradiction, making the rules that are clear, but they are in conflict with one another. He makes impossible demands, requiring conduct far beyond the powers of the affected parties. And finally, he also frustrates his subjects by constantly changing the law so frequently that the people cannot orient their actions, and by failing to enforce the rules consistently. These are all the things which come somehow to our mind, and we have to ask if we do not fall in the situation that Lon Fuller was talking about. He put forward this allegory to illustrate the different ways in which the attempt to create and maintain the legal system of rules may miscarry. During this year's CPDP, there was much debate on the application of various laws that make up EU digital rulebook, as well as on the proposed regulation to aim to revise it, in particular the proposal of the regulation of simplification of AI rules and the proposal of the regulation on simplification of the digital legislative framework. Faced with a multiplicity and interweaving of laws and the possibility of changes to come, what lessons we can learn from the example, from the allegory of the King Rex. I will start first with the need to get clarity. Laws must be written as clearly as possible so that they can be understandable for everyone. Simplification lies in the core of two omnibus proposals which aim to clarify obligations and bring greater legal certainty and harmonization. Whether the proposals meet the objectives was a part of the discussion throughout the whole conference. Simplification does not mean and should not be understood to mean the same with the regulation. Over past 10 years, GDPR has become the gold standard in the field of data protection and a kind of landmark for the other regulations around the world. Even if they don't follow GDPR, they have to say why they don't follow the GDPR. So, as EDPS, we've been always encouraged to open reflection on how to further strengthen the consistent application of the GDPR. But as we discuss the possibility of reforms, we must always keep in mind that both the concept of the personal data and the requirement of independent oversight are anchored in the Charter of Fundamental Rights and in the Treaty of Functioning of the European Union. Of course, any regulation can be improved and should be adapted to social and technological and economical changes, especially if it goes to the digital sector, which is in constant evolution. And we should welcome simplification where it clarifies the obligations, empowers individuals, and increases the trust. But careful balance needs to be struck. We should avoid changes that risk undermining the core foundations in the principles, and you heard it from everybody, starting from those who prepared the draft of the changes, going through those who were the most critical against these changes, and those who were fully supporting them. So only then can personal data continue to be used with the confidence that fundamental rights of individuals are being respected. In other words, simplification must enhance legal certainty without diluting protection. By highlighting the need for legal certainty, we touch upon another crucial lesson from Fuller's allegory. The law must remain sufficiently stable and should not be the subject of the constant change. Frequent changes can lead to the exact opposite of intended result, creating more confusion, less clarity. Fuller's allegory also cautions against the abuse of retroactive legislation. A few years ago, EDPS has ordered Europol to delete the data that was being processed unlawfully. This order was followed by the revision of the Europol regulation, which had the effect of retroactively legalizing those processing activities. As we still await for the final judgment of the Court of Justice in the case of EDPS against the European Parliament and the European and the Council, which was connected with this reform of Europol regulation, we are waiting for the new draft of the new reform of the Europol regulation, as well as Eurojust, as well as EPPO. And we have to believe that the utmost importance is to be done to ensure that no legal certainty, but also no preservation of the effective independent oversight may happen. Regardless of goals which are given to these reforms, European values must remain constant compass guiding the legislators. So, the human dignity, freedom, democracy, equality, and the rule of law and the respect to the human rights. The last lesson in Fuller's allegory that I would like to highlight relates to the need of congruence between the addicted rules and their application. This brings me to the enforcement of the digital rule book and the need for harmonized enforcement, not only harmonized among the data protection authorities, but also between them and the other regulators in the field. And let me conclude this conclusion of the CPDP, once again with Lon Fuller's citation from the Morality of Law. That was the work he did at the end of his famous discussion with Hart. He said, "It is easy to see that laws should be clearly expressed in general rules that are prospective in effect and made known to the citizen. But to know how, under what circumstances, and in what balance these things should be achieved is no less undertaking than being a lawgiver." So, concluding the CPDP, the future of data protection is the collective ambition and the collective work. Thank you for being the part of this undertaking. Thank you for the organizers. Paul, the floor is yours.
Thank you for the 2 minutes. I promised. I have a PowerPoint. Put it on, please, and go to the next slide. Thank you, European Data Protection Supervisor, for being here. We're going to do something with your pictures because we saw you taking pictures in almost all panels that you attended, and I was proud of you. And I'm proud of the audience that went home, but I'm also, of course, very proud of all these aficionados. There are drinks outside, but I'm going to say a couple thank yous, and then we can have them. If not, they don't give us to them. So we had nearly 150 sessions. We had a lot of speakers, and we were more than 1,200 that registered for this conference. And so an average attendance rate above 1,000 every day, which is not bad, So that's what makes a great conference. That is so many dedicated people from very early to very late being present. And I try to explain that to my family every year, but I fail. But so I'm very proud of this dedication. And even in this last panel, the idea that lawyers listen to computer scientists and so on, it has great value because you see these computer scientists, I'm a lawyer, in action, and you say, whoa. And they can have a decisive voice in very crucial debates, but you need to listen. And we need to organize these encounters. And sometimes one discipline will bring the added value. I hear a lot of social science wisdom. I'm proud of that. I hear a lot of legal stuff, but I'm also hearing a lot of computer science. So we had several tracks. We're serving the audience not for organizing a great divide, but also for making people feel at home, and then we mix all kinds of panels. Next slide, please. So where would we be without our CPDP conference partners? These are academic and research institutes that enabled this conference, and actually we're not an academic conference. It's not an academia conference, but it's the academics playing the safeguards of this conference, which is very much needed in a very political city as the Brussels one. So I thank the conference partners, and partly this is reflected by the presence of many of my colleagues in the scientific committee who give a very concrete voice to this concern for being a platform that is proud to be independent. Next slide, please. Then we have our sponsors, a lot to say. I love them all, and I'm thanking them. We need people, we need everything, and we love to have the private industry voice in this conference, and also we appreciate the sponsoring. And so in my heart, I applaud for every one of them. I wish more stepped in, and I keep on insisting on the presence of European tech firms, but they prefer these little back doors to power, so we will never hear their arguments. Yeah? So we're having a reform here of important laws and important ideas, but we never heard the discussion. Yeah? And it is the backdoor policy that actually weakens that industry, if you believe me. They should be here, they should be proudly here, and then we would have a reasoned debate and know with whom we are debating. Yeah? And that is not in the impact assessment. There was no impact assessment. We don't know whose voice we should listen to. Next, and so, yes, thank you for these people to step in and to take the floor. And then the panel organizers, these are the vibrant institutes and the vibrant of all kinds, academic, policy, others that have chosen CPDP as a platform for organizing panels. It's very courageous because we're not easy with them, and there is quality control. And I love to see them every year, and also newcomers and so on. So I'm very cool with these people. Next slide, please. These are our media partners. We're beautiful. We forget to tell people, and so we count on these people to give and bring that story. And there will be more because we recorded a lot of sessions, and they will be on the internet in time, and we will use all media channels to remember that these recordings are out there. The moral supporters are as important. We work closely together with a lot of organizations in the Brussels sphere. There was a pre-conference in Bruxelles Central on the LGBTQ theme, and we were proudly co-organizing that in a modest degree because we like this Brussels activity in the realm of fundamental rights. And then a very important last one, I think. Next, please. Yeah, so this is a big conference, and everybody asks me, how do you do it? These people do it. Yeah? And so we are not a centralized body. We work together with existing partners. MediCongress does a lot of the logistics. Art Food did the catering, and Avicom is making sure that all the technicalities work. A lot of people on that, including students from many universities, volunteering in exchange for presence, and they love it, and we love them. They're beautiful, and it's really adding to the vibe of this conference. And I think that is all. Thank you, dear people, to be here, to listen to us, to enjoy this conference for 3 days. And I would love to see you out there for a last glass. Thank you.